schedule. He planned to do this. He's essentially defaming a woman who died yesterday. And he also says that this ICE officer has absolute immunity. As you mentioned, I mean, were on the forefront as Attorney General of fighting illegality, including by this Trump administration. Does he have absolute immunity? What do you make of that claim?
No, of course not. Look, Jen, I have had to deal with incredibly difficult investigations where there's been a loss of life at the hand of a law enforcement official. And Jen, we take these investigations so seriously, and we work with law enforcement at every level. We study the evidence. We follow where it leads. And in some cases, we prosecute police for doing something wrong. And in other cases, no matter how difficult it is for a community, when you follow the rule of law, when you follow the facts, you don't prosecute them. But the fact remains, you have to have a thorough investigation. And by J.D. Vance saying what he said, denying that investigation, literally making up nonsense, what he's doing is he's creating more chaos in our communities. And I think he's come to define what this administration is all about: chaos, cruelty, and corruption. And I think J.D. Vance summed it up yet again today from the White House briefing room.
There's no question, as you continue to campaign for your election here and you continue to govern, you could be navigating what a lot of people in these other cities and states are navigating. And we saw just yesterday, Governor Walz asked ICE to leave Minnesota alone. The mayor of Portland is calling for a halt on ICE operations in his city. This could happen to Pennsylvania, as you well know. Have you thought, or have you made any plans to change how you're directing state agencies to interact with ICE?
Not only have we thought, not only have we planned, we've gone through tabletop exercises. We've worked with law enforcement at every level to be prepared. We don't want law enforcement that is sent here without a coordinated effort into our communities. We want more law enforcement in our communities in a coordinated way, coordinated between law enforcement at every level and coordinated with our communities, working in partnership. Jen, here in Pennsylvania, I made a commitment to hire 2,000 more law enforcement officers. We're at about 1,900. We're going to eclipse that 2,000 figure. And we work with our community organizations. And Jen, violent crime is down 12%. Gun violence is down 42%. What we're doing here is working. We don't want the Trump administration, the Trump-Vance administration, to be sending people here against the will of a community. That injects chaos, and it erodes the trust that we have worked so hard to build.
It sounds like, I know you're referring to your local law enforcement and all the incredible work they do, and certainly ICE is not reducing crime. That is not what they're doing, actually, in a lot of communities. Are you telling law enforcement to reduce their cooperation, to give them less information, not to give them information they request? Or is there anything you're changing, given what we've seen over the last couple of days?
We follow state law, but we work with law enforcement at every level to keep communities safe. What we don't want is the injection of people in our communities who are going to make our neighborhoods less safe. I think what we're doing here in Pennsylvania is working. And we work with our federal partners. We engage with them, and we work with them in a way where we can build trust with them and they can build trust with the community. That's what we need more of. What we're seeing in other communities erodes that trust and injects a level of chaos in our communities that, as we're sadly seeing, is quite dangerous.
You've done a lot in your first term as governor. I appreciate it, as somebody who grew up driving on I-95, that you talked about fixing I-95, something a lot of people care about, honestly. A lot of people care about. It's possible that, you're working with a divided legislature, but there are a lot of elections that could come up. There could be more congressional seats won, state legislature, you could win back more. What would you do if you won the trifecta? What would you love to accomplish in a next term as governor?
Well, we've gotten a whole lot of stuff done, even with the divided legislature. We've invested historic amounts in public education, universal free breakfast. We talked before about the investments we've made in law enforcement. Our economy is growing. In fact, we've got the only growing economy in the northeastern part of the United States. We've cut taxes 7 times to put money back in people's pockets. And so we're finding ways to work together, Democrat and Republican alike. But to the heart of your question, Pennsylvania once again, will be the center of the political universe in these midterms. That's why I am laser focused on these midterms, not just for my race and my great Lieutenant Governor, Austin Davis, but the balance of power in the U.S. House of Representatives is likely going to come down to these 4 seats in Pennsylvania. My entire state legislature is divided by only 3 seats, 2 in the Senate, 1 in the House. We get a trifecta. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We're going to address gun violence even more head on. We're going to pass protections for victims of abuse and our LGBTQ brothers and sisters.
So we've seen this grim pattern unfold over the last year where the Department of Homeland Security makes a big show of announcing the next target of its campaign of fear and menace. Yesterday, following an inquiry from MS Now, the mayors of the 2 largest cities in Maine, Portland and Lewiston, warned that their cities will be the next target. They urged their constituents to know their rights, to create a plan if they are stopped by federal authorities. Now, both cities, we should say, have large Somali American populations dating back decades. In fact, it was 23 years ago this week that Lewiston was actually the target of a coordinated white supremacist hate campaign in which extremists tried to purge the city of its Somali residents. In a statement to her constituents, Maine's Democratic Governor Janet Mills made clear that ISIS tactics of fear and intimidation are not welcome in her state. Governor Janet Mills is also running to be Maine's Democratic Senate nominee, and she joins me now. Governor, it's good to have you. First, just what have you been told, and by whom, about the possibility of some surge of ICE DHS operations in your state?
Well, thanks, Chris. Look, we've been trying to find out, first of all, seeking confirmation or denial, calling federal officials and saying, can you tell us something here? Can you tell the police, the local police, are you sending people in for some action? As a matter of common courtesy, you ought to let us know. We've gotten no response, no confirmation or denial. And the fact that there was no denial tells you volumes, speaks volumes, I guess. So we have to prepare and assume that they're sending some people in for some kind of operation in our cities. And I will tell them, as I said last night, if they plan to engage in provocative actions, if they plan to deprive people of civil rights, civil liberties on our streets, in our cities and towns, they're not welcome here. Those tactics are not welcome here. We are a state that applauds professional law enforcement. We know good law enforcement when we see it. We hold our law enforcement agents to strict training requirements and high professional standards. And I'll tell you one thing, they don't wear masks. They don't have to wear masks to hide their identity. They don't make arrests based on some quota from any higher up. That's not good law enforcement. We don't want to see happen here what's happened in other cities. We don't welcome it. We don't want it.
I just want to confirm what you said at the beginning there, because it is pretty remarkable to me. Like, there's really not any communication. There's no one from DHS who is saying one way or the other. Like, there's no channel there.
Correct. You know, as a matter of common courtesy, you'd think that their law enforcement would talk to our law enforcement, that the governor of a state would be notified if there's some major operation coming, or deny it. Just tell me it isn't going to happen. I'd welcome the news. We'd all welcome that news. But I will tell you what, we stand for good communications. Our state stands for civility, and we stand for civil rights and civil liberties. And what we will do if they come here is do everything we can to protect the safety of the public and the civil rights and civil liberties of all people in Maine.
The reporting suggests that the pretext here, and I call it a pretext advisedly, is that there is a significant Somali American population in Maine. It's been there for a while. I think the latest estimates are 3,200 people. It had been about 10,000 folks.
Probably more.
Largely original refugee, but now obviously American citizens and the like. Do you have a message for them if they're feeling targeted and freaked out and like they're the ones that these federal agents are coming to seize or mess with?
Right. It's a terrible thing to target an entire community based on race, ethnicity, religion. Look, the pretense here, ostensibly from public reports, is some kind of fraud. Look, I welcome any and all evidence of fraud. If somebody has evidence of fraud, let us know and we'll pursue it. We have been pursuing it, actually, in Medicaid fraud. We've been auditing for the last 3 years certain organizations. But listen, to target and castigate an entire community because of the alleged misdoings of a couple people is wrong. And it's unconstitutional in my view. It's discriminatory. Listen, I was a district attorney for 3 counties, the elected district attorney. I was attorney general of this state for 8 years. I prosecuted fraud. I prosecuted all kinds of crimes. I know how to investigate fraud. I know how to prosecute fraud. It need not result in a street sweep of innocent people. It need not endanger the civil rights and civil liberties of people because of their ethnicity, their color, the color of their skin, or their religion. It need not entail a sweep or an operation of the sort that has gone on in other states and cities across this country. It's a pretense.
I know you've said you haven't heard anything from the Trump administration or DHS. Have you been in contact with other?
What we're witnessing right now across the country, especially here in Minnesota, is something that goes far beyond one incident in one city. You've seen it reported. Another federal agent, part of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement surge in Minneapolis, shot a man last week, just days after the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent. That second incident sparked protests and clashes between locals and federal officers as tensions continue to escalate. And it raises the exact question we should be asking. Are blue states standing up and fighting back? Are they saying, no, we're not just going to let the federal government run over our people, our communities, and our laws? The fact that we're even having this debate shows how deep this conflict has become. Minnesota leaders, including the city's mayor and the governor, are openly criticizing federal actions and calling for greater accountability and de-escalation. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. That's because people are scared, angry, and exhausted from how enforcement is being conducted. Here's the core issue. If this were truly about security or public safety, then federal forces would be focusing on the highest crime areas in the country, including many rural counties in red states where per capita violent crime and social dysfunction have been serious problems for years. Those issues didn't emerge overnight. Decades of economic neglect from both Republican and Democratic leadership have hollowed out these communities. Yet we don't see a federal operation of this scope there. Instead, what we see is a concentrated federal crackdown in a major blue city in Minneapolis, where community leaders are pushing back. They're saying no, not just rhetorically, but through legal efforts, public protest, and political pressure. That's what people mean when they say blue states are resisting. But make no mistake, this isn't just about law enforcement strategy. It's about political power. The current federal administration has shown through its decisions about where to deploy forces, how to frame these incidents, and how aggressively to defend agents publicly and legally, that it's willing to use federal power not merely to enforce law, but to punish places and people that voted differently. When you hear federal officials using extreme rhetoric, calling protests insurrection, threatening the use of the Insurrection Act to deploy troops, or branding dissenting leaders as criminals, that's not neutral language. That's political targeting. It says, if you are a blue state or a blue city and you push back against federal policy, you risk being treated like an enemy state rather than a partner in public safety. And that's why people are scared, because this goes beyond a single city's problems or a single fatal shootout. This is about whether different levels of government respect each other's roles, whether federal force is used equitably, and whether local communities have a voice in how public safety is managed where they live.